Personally, I think the entire fucking abomination should be cut, but apparently a new rumor is going around about some infighting going on behind the scenes between producers and editors over some storylines cut from Season 2. Part of me doesn't really believe this, but then another part of me would laugh so fucking hard if this is true. Hello, this is Mara Jade, and I'm back with another video, and yes, I will be watching Season 2 of this abomination. I suffered through Season 1 and broke down all the lore breaking and so forth, and I will do so with the same with the second season. But let's just dive right into this article so we can get a gauge of why producers and editors are fighting over cutting Numenorian and Elven storylines for Season 2 of this shit show. So, here it is. So a new rumor claims there's a battle behind the scenes between editors and producers for The Rings of Power on whether they should cut out Numenorian or Elven storylines for Season 2 of the Prime Video series. Again, I'll say the whole fucking series should be cut, but that's just my own personal opinion. Why? Because they did it to themselves before the series even premiered, and this article even goes into that, and I will elaborate further once I get to that point. This new rumor comes from Fellowship of Fans and explains that producers for the series want the second season to focus more on the Numenorian story instead of the elves, while editors are in favor of the Elven storyline over the Numenorian storyline. It's been neither so far, but it's unclear why the producers want more of the Numenorian storyline, but the editors want the Elven storyline because it apparently leads into a big 2-episode battle that concludes the second season. Oh, the rumored big 2-episode battle that focuses on Eregion and how that lore will be bastardized in the second season. Yeah. This 2-episode battle was confirmed back in October when The Hollywood Reporter's James Hibbard took a set visit and reported, quote, they plan to introduce more iconic locations, familiar Middle-earth characters, and a massive 2-episode battle. Iconic locations equals member berries. And familiar Middle-earth characters, they've been in-name only thus far, so nothing fucking familiar at all about them. And who gives a fuck about a massive 2-episode battle when no one gives a shit about the characters post-Season 1? Right? The outlet notes it was revealed to Fellowship of Fans that the specific plot line which the Rings of Power producers wanted to cut down to compromise for more Numenor scenes was the Elven plotline in Season 2. An anonymous source also told the outlet, quote, the editing team are the professionals. They know about the place and what makes sense for the episodes to have the right rhythm and makes sense, but the producers are staying firm with this suggestion. Regardless of why they are fighting, this problem appears to be one of their own making. Yes, it goes way back to even before the series premiered, when the lies were revealed. Especially with the showrunners who claimed that they were adapting the Silmarillion, and that turned out to be one massive fucking lie. It all went downhill from there. Instead of breaking up various stories from the Second Age over 5 seasons, because they do not have the rights to anything dealing with the Second Age at all, with the exception of the appendices, and that's it. That's all the rights they have that would remotely touch on the Second Age. They don't have the rights to Silmarillion, the history of Middle-earth, and so forth. Nothing. So this entire fucking series is in name only. Pure studio fan fiction to the extreme. It's the epitome of studio fan fiction at this point. The only rival to this shit show is the Halo series. I didn't see Wheel of Time, did not bother, but that's probably a close runner-up. Instead of, 5 seasons and culminating with the last alliance of men and elves, what we saw at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring, showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay chose to write the novel that Tolkien didn't. Right? They even come out and say this. Can we come up with the novel Tolkien never wrote and do it as the mega event series that could only happen now? They literally told people that this is their own fan fiction, their own headcanon. They even told people, but you still had people defending them, saying, oh, the Second Age is so complicated, they're going to streamline it, and bullshit. Tolkien never wrote the Silmarillion. Bullshit. Tolkien wrote the Silmarillion before he wrote The Lord of the Rings. He was ready to publish it, but the publishers didn't want to publish it because they wanted to bank on the popularity of The Hobbit. So they made Tolkien shelve the Silmarillion and focus on Lord of the Rings. That's why the Silmarillion wasn't published until posthumously, pretty much, after Tolkien's death. That's the only fucking reason why. But Tolkien had everything fucking written, laid out, literally the history of Middle-earth. And this is what we get. Because they lied about having the rights to the Second Age. To that end, they also explained why they were not staying true to Tolkien's Legendarium. Again, there's another lie they told and continue to tell about how they're going to respect what Tolkien gave us. How, like, they were going back to the book, going back to the book, going back to the book. What fucking book were they talking about? If you are true to the exact letter of the law, you're going to be telling a story in which your human characters are dying off every season because you're jumping 200 years in time, and then you're not meeting really big important canon characters until season 4. Look, there might be some fans who want us to do a documentary of Middle-earth, but we're going to tell one story that unites all these things. So you're going to basically make it a hodgepodge, a mishmash, a fucking Frankenstein monster of a story. Tolkien fans know the story. They don't fucking care if there's going to be huge time jumps or anything like that. They know the Silmarillion. They know the history of Middle-earth. That's what they fucking want to see. The actual characters, the actual storylines, and so forth. That's what they want to see. So we don't care. You're basically... I have nothing against normies, alright? I have nothing against normies. But I'm pretty sure they'd be smart enough to figure this shit out. Alright? Even if you stayed absolutely true to the lore and all that, they'd be able to fucking figure it out. And if they couldn't, well, guess what? That's what the internet is for. That's what Tolkien fans are for. We can explain that to them. Are you confused about this? Let me elaborate for you. Let me try to clear it up for you. But no, they didn't. The solution to this problem, as alluded to above, is breaking up all the major events into 1 or 2 seasons, each of them culminating them in an entire season on the last alliance of N and Ls. Jesus Christ. Editors, do your job. The solution to this problem, as alluded to above, is breaking up all the major events into 1 or 2 seasons each, right? And then culminating them with an entire season on the last alliance of men and elves, which they would be able to show, but they really shouldn't. They should culminate at the beginning of the last alliance of men and elves, because we already saw the last alliance of men and elves at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. So they could end this series, if they were at all being truthful and at all had the rights to the Second Age, right? They would end it with the culmination of the men and elves joining, aligning themselves in the last alliance, literally, against Sauron and his forces. Thus, you would have probably 2 seasons for the creation of the Rings of Power, the One Ring, and Sauron's War on the Elves, which would have been the actual Battle of Eregion that we would want to see, right? It's not the sole battle, but it's crucial. Alright? The first season would probably be Sauron's return to Middle-earth and his posing as Annatar, the giver of gifts, because Annatar is an elf, not a human. Whereupon he begins to manipulate the elves into building the Rings of Power. And the reason why Sauron chose the form of an elf is basically to stick it to Iluvatar, alright, because the elves are the children of Iluvatar, the children of God, essentially. So he chose the form of Iluvatar's children to basically say a big fuck you to God. Alright? So that's what he did. He manipulated them into creating the Rings of Power. Alright? This could be a very Game of Thrones-esque season with a lot of palace intrigue and Sauron manipulating the political levers of Eregion and driving out his chief moral and political foe, Galadriel. The season would culminate in the creation of the One Ring and the elves becoming aware of Sauron. That's when he reveals himself at around year 1600. That's when he reveals himself. Alright, because the rings are created about 1590 to 1591 during the Second Age, those years. And Sauron reveals himself about 10 years later. The second season would focus on Sauron's war on the elves and his invasion of Eriador. It would feature a battle at Eregion, the death of Celebrimbor, actual Celebrimbor, not this shithead, this old-looking fuck talking to in-name only Elrond. These are all in-name only characters, because Celebrimbor is a master craftsman. He was the actual friend of the dwarves. And not only was he a master craftsman, he was a fucking warrior. He literally did a last stand against Sauron and his forces. We're not going to see that, are we? No. The mines of Moria being shut, the creation of the settlement of Rivendell, which Elrond established, and the aid of the Númenóreans provided to Gil-galad. Actual Númenóreans, not the shit we've seen. It concludes with Sauron having conquered Eriador, but the Númenóreans arrive. Alright, the faithful. The faithful. The third season focused on the Númenóreans' initial war with Sauron. It would feature the arrival of the Ring Wraiths and Sauron's initial attacks on the strong places of the Númenóreans, the Ring Wraiths being the 9 men. Right? So we would like to see that. Who are, like, these 9 men, right? Becoming the Ring Wraiths for Sauron. The antithesis to the Fellowship of the Ring. 9 and 9. Mind blown. Alright? This season could also begin to feature internal Númenórean politics, and how the nation began to abandon its traditions and at times outright ban them, right? So basically you have the, I don't want to say infighting basically, but like, alright, like the chasm, the divide, the split, alright, between the faithful and our Pharazarns, alright, like basically that divide happening. And when I say Ar-Pharazôn, I mean him and his followers. Alright, those loyal to Ar-Pharazôn, and then the faithful, which would include Elendil and his 2 sons. No daughter, his 2 sons. The 4th season would feature Sauron's surrender to the Númenóreans and his subsequent manipulating of Ar-Pharazôn. That leads to the ultimate downfall of Númenor. It would see Sauron turn Númenor into a despotic state where political and moral dissidents are rounded up and burned. He literally convinces Ar-Pharazôn to wage war against the Valar. The White Tree of Nimloth would be chopped down, but not before Isildur rescued the scion of the tree, right? That's the White Tree of Gondor, pretty much. That's what that becomes. Alright? It would also see Ar-Pharazôn lead the Númenórean military against the Valinor, right? Against Valinor, the Valar, resulting in their utter destruction and the destruction of Númenor. The season would conclude with us seeing Elendil and his sons, no daughter, escape the destruction with the ships they had prepared and make their way to Middle-earth, right? Because there's no port of Gondor at this fucking point, but the series fucking dropped that name so far in Season 1. But there's no port of Gondor. It's not even been established yet at this point in the timeline. Finally, the 5th season sees Sauron's war against the last alliance of men and elves. I would disagree with that slightly. As I said, I think we should see the last alliance form, but not really see the actual last alliance, because we did see that, technically, but we did see it at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. We do not really need to see it again, in my personal opinion, but that's my own opinion. We would see the death of Elendil, which we saw in the Fellowship of the Ring, so we do not need to see that again. The slicing of the ring from Sauron's hand by Isildur. We do not need to see this all again. We saw this at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. Yes, it's condensed dramatically and so forth, but for the most part, we did see it, so we do not need to see this again. My own personal opinion. Alright, so we know all this. We know all this. I think it should have just ended with the last alliance forming. Alright, just leave it there. We know what's going to happen, and like, you know, the forces, and it would be a cliffhanger ending, but alright, but it would be like the shot would be the Númenóreans and the elves marching into battle together. Alright. As far as the idea of certain characters not showing up until the 4th season, there is absolutely no problem with that. No, because we know the timeline. We know certain characters aren't going to show up until later, so we don't fucking care. Major characters are indeed introduced a lot of times in stories in the 2nd and 3rd seasons, and viewers have no problems with that. Prime Video is doing that in the upcoming 2nd season, The Wheel of Time. They are introducing both... I'm not going to try pronouncing their names because I do not know these characters, and I do not know The Wheel of Time. But they're introducing these characters, 2 of the biggest characters in Jordan's novel series in the 2nd season. They were not in the 1st season. So what do you make of this rumor dispute? Well, okay, part of me, like I said, part of me doesn't really believe it. It's rumor, it's speculation, it's pretty much my sources approach. But at the same time, like I said, part of me kind of hopes it's true just so I could laugh so hard at the shit show that Amazon created, and showrunners, everything around the Rings of Power was downhill from when it was revealed that they had been lying to Tolkien fans pretty much since day fucking one. But at any rate, what are your thoughts on all this down in the comments below? Do you believe this rumor? Do you disbelieve this rumor? Did you watch the 1st season as I did? Did you suffer through it as I did? Are you planning on watching the 2nd season, or live vicariously through one of your favorite reviewers going through the 2nd season? As I stated, I'll be watching the 2nd season and breaking it down, and when I say breaking it down, I mean tearing it to fucking pieces, as I did with Season 1. But that's just me, pretty much. But at any rate, I will see you all tonight, most likely on my Twitch, either playing Batman Arkham Knight, if that game works, or Armored Core 6, which I'm very much enjoying so far. Only played for about a couple hours, but it's gotten me hooked. So hope to see you all then. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. This is Marjade, catch you on the dark side, and I'll reiterate, the whole fucking series should be cut.